Hey guys, Bill Kennedy with W. Leon Artistry, and today we're going to be painting Iron Man. We're going to use a little bit different method than what I have been using. We're going to use the method where you print the picture, cut out your dark lines and spots. It's not the way I recommend you continue doing that, but it is the way I started learning, so we can just focus on color and we can just focus on our shading. So that'll make it easier for the newcomers to figure this out. If you don't need to do it that way, hey, great. It takes me longer to cut one out like this than it does for me to transfer it out. But you know, this is the way I learned when I first started and the way most people learn when they first started. Anyway, we're going to get right to it. All right, guys, first thing I did, I took some shelf liner to create that little bit of texture in the background, and then I'm glazing over that to darken it in just a little bit more. I'm going to pull out all my little pieces of my darkest spots at the cheek and the mouth, and then we're going to go ahead and fill them in and get them dark. It's important that you're going to have to use shields. You're going to have to use taping, masking, something to get those crisp edges. It's just imperative in something like this that you have those crisp and sharp edges. It's just not an option. If you were working a very large scale, you could freehand that. But if you're working a small scale, you're really going to have to use shields to get that really nice, beautiful, hard edge. Then we're going to take plain scarlet, or just a red, and we're going to fill everything in. And we're going to lay off our highlights. And there's a couple of spots you'll see where I put that sharp line in there, and I'll explain that just a little bit. And fill everything in, but we're going to lay off spots where the bright highlights are so that it appears pink. All right, next, guys, I'm going to add a couple of drops of moss green to my red, and that's going to create this burgundy look that you're looking at. And then there's going to be a third shade, which is black, but later. But what we're going to do with this burgundy is we're going to create, from these crisp edges, we're going to create sharp edges and then gradient out. Notice your gradients here. Same thing here. We're going to lay off these spots here that are pink for the highlights. We're going to create each one of those lines a gradient inside, and you'll see how I'll do this once with the burgundy mix, and then we're going to do it again with a darker mix, and I'll tell you when I switch to that darker mix, it'll make complete and total sense then. All right, there's what that burgundy color is going to look like. That's that red mixed with a little bit of green, and we're going to do just like we talked about. We're going to use our paper to create our crisp edges, and we're going to gradient out from there, and then we're going to lay off the other spots, which will create our highlights and make everything. That's kind of what's going to help give that illusion of depth and the illusion of the metallic colors. The metallics will be more prominent in the gold, even though this particular picture is not a completely realistic picture. You still want to get that metallic effect in there. And we're just going to keep removing pieces as we need to, and pull back and then create our next gradient. And all we have to do is simply look at the piece and see how far of a gradient we've got coming out from there. Got to fill in any spots that are going to be in complete darkness later. That goes back to color stacking. We've talked about that in other videos in the past, where you do not want to put your dark spot over any place you don't have 100% coverage of your lighter color. There are some exceptions to that rule, but in general, you want to get that lighter color underneath first, which is why we used that red, laid off of that with the pink. Any place that we're painting, we're not painting anywhere that we laid off with the red, and then we're going to, any place we laid off with the scarlet, we're not going to take our darker mix on top of that. And then we're just going to continue to move on and create those gradients darker in each section. You'll see a couple of spots where I'm using my pencil eraser to bring out a couple of little things that I meant to leave open and forgot to, and then a couple of crisp edges. You can't go very crazy erasing with this. I'm doing this on photo paper, regular glossy photo paper like you would print a photo on, so the scratching erasing ability is not that good. So, but you can do just a little bit of it if you do it while the paint is still pretty wet. As you can see here, I am coming in with my even darker mix. I'm going to fill in certain spots. Certain spots are going to be almost black in this picture. They're not, but they're a lot darker than that red or that pink. There's a couple of little reflections in the armor that I am laying in here freehand. You know, they don't have to be perfect. You'll also see me, I used a micron pen to create that one sharp black line there, and you'll see me come over with my mix and kind of blur that out just a little bit with my airbrush and work on it with my airbrush just to blend that out and make it a little less noticeable that it's a pen. Got a really dark, almost black mix now. I've added black to my original, and you notice I'm using that around there. There's a white spot down below that's just black and white, normal chrome, and we're creating that. Of course, I'm coming back in with my eraser again, and there, as you can see, as I was talking about how I was blending those lines out with that very dark mix. We're going to continue to come in here and create all of our gradients as we need, and then when I get done with that, I am going to take yellow, straight yellow, and we're going to cover the most of the entirety. We're going to lay off a few spots on the front of the face. Then we are going to take some burnt umber, and we're going to create some of those sharp edges there, but we're also, and you'll see how I use the crisp edge for that, but also notice how I am creating little striations just running up and down there, and that goes with the direction of the flow of the armor, and it's going to start taking on that metallic look in here in a minute. Of course, this one we're going to be going quite a bit darker than this burnt umber layer. So in this, in itself would look pretty good if this was in normal lighting. This, the burnt umber and yellow alone would do a pretty convincing metallic look. But we are going to go to another layer after that. Notice how I'm using my freehand shield there. It is necessary to have that freehand or that shield up there to create that crisp edge around those eyes up there. I'm going to use it to catch the edge of that to create a little bit of sharp edge in the armor. Any spot that you have that you're going to have a lot of contrast anywhere there's a sharp edge in a metallic. So, and that's the same thing here. So you got to have a crisp edge. What you're going to have is a highlight and then a dark shadow, and then your shadow will run from your crisp edge down. It'll get lighter as it gets away from your shadow. So your shadows are the darkest right where they're formed when you're talking about a crisp edge like that. When you're talking about a round edge, they gradient out, but they are the darkest where they're first formed as well. They're just not near as noticeable. Notice how I'm coming in here, catching those spots with my dark mix. Right now we're going to an even darker mix than just the umber. We have a mix in here that it's a burnt umber, and I believe I mixed a little bit of red violet with the burnt umber just to make an even darker color than that. And we're going to continue to work that, make sure we put our crisp edges where we need it. Like I said, once again, can't say it enough. Those crisp edges you're going to have that highlight and then that shadow right next to each other, and that is going to create the illusion that there is a sharp turning edge to create down in a metallic. We're going to do some blending out. Of course, I'm filling in that whole spot underneath the chin or underneath his lips there, I guess you would say. And same, it's following along the same path as the lowest spot on his chin, which is very dark. Even though it's a red, it's very dark there. Same thing, we're in that deep shadow there, and we're eventually going to blend that out and make the face very much darker. But notice we're going to lay off spots. We're going to leave it, it's going to be kind of blotchy. And this is the point in which we're going to get in here. We're going to sell that look that it's metallic inside a darker shadow with just a little bit of reflections on it. Notice I'm following along the same patterns, basically the same look that I was doing with my burnt umber layer. So notice I am not trying to be I'm not trying to get full coverage. I'm trying to create striations, or there's reflective surfaces is what you got going on there. And I'm coming back in, crisping in that edge over the top. Notice I had taped off and covered the eyes. And obviously that's starting to come loose on me there, but we're going to work on that. And we'll let that work out. We're almost to the end of this gold layer anyway. Once again, using my shield right there, filling it in, getting that whole front of that face dark, kind of selling that look as best as possible, and then we're going to pull off them eyes. Alright guys, in order to sell this look, notice that you have to have those little highlights around there, and that's going to show where the edge rolls in there. You got your highlight as I was talking about, and then your shadow and gradients out from there. You catch a highlight off of this edge. But I want to talk about these eyes for a second, because now that I've pulled these eyes out, I've shaded off, I've covered off this whole area here, not just this inside. And this outer edge is got to be filled in with darks. And what you're looking at is this is showing these highlights in here. That is giving you the illusion that there's a piece of glass. So there's a sharp, or the glass is inset, but then there's more metal behind the glass, which is what's creating that shadow behind. So I'll go through that when I show you it, but that is an important aspect to sell that look and make it really believable. All right, and here it is. So obviously I missed that dark spot earlier, so I'm going to put that in now. I've got my black, I just have a standard black mix reduced down a little bit, so I'm just creating a gray. And then I'm going to come in here and put that shade around the outside of the edge, and then you'll notice I'll put some highlights in there to create that look. The glass is midway in the metal, and that we just talked about. So I'm just freehanding in here. I really should have probably used the shield, but I'm actually got some, after I put the blue in and then I put the white back in, I want to kill some of that, so it's going to be a little bit fuzzy anyway. So I just chose to freehand it in rather quickly. And you'll see here in a minute how that effect lays out there. I used a little bit of a shield right there just to create that little crisp edge right there. And that's what it looks like when I pull it off. And at this point you think it's going to be perfect. I'm going to put some blue in here, and it's probably going to look like I have ruined it, but I promise you I have not. I'm going to gradient that with blue. I'll put a couple of highlights where the glass, to simulate where the glass location is, and then I will take some white paint and I will glaze. I'll put white paint in, and I'll allow that white paint to haze out to create that glowy effect. You'll see how that appears really, really fast. And then you can see how I put the highlights in there. See those small highlights in there where I put it in there? That's what gives the appearance the glass is sitting midway in the metal. Then I'm going to take my white this side, and like I said, let that get hazy a little bit, create that glowy effect. And that's pretty much all there is to this tutorial, guys. Gonna go back in and clean up just a little bit of things here and there. All right, I appreciate y'all stopping by. This is our finished piece. Like I said, this one's going to be geared towards beginners to intermediate artists. So, you know, we could go more realistic than this, but this is not supposed to be a very realistic piece. It's just supposed to be a cool piece. But anyway, we appreciate y'all stopping by. If you enjoyed what you're seeing today, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like what you're seeing, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that you can know what's coming up. We got new videos coming out all the time. Anyway, we appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great day. Bye.